Bourrée from the first Lute Suite by J.S. Bach. This is a piece that's often prescribed to students very early in their development. It should be prescribed later. It's really quite a difficult piece. I would say it's more of an intermediate piece and an intermediate counterpoint example, because you have, of course, you're playing two lines at the same time. You'll see on your score that you have a line with a stem up and then a line with stem down. In other lessons in the curriculum, I've recommended just playing these lines alone and then playing them and then reinserting the line, stem up for example, playing it alone. And then playing it with the other line. Same thing with the bass line. It's very good to play the bass line, especially alone. We tend to hear the top line or the stem up more prominently. And so in order to get this same kind of clarity of hearing in the bass, it's very good to play the bass lines alone. And so that you get more clearly, more easily get a sense of the melodic nature of the bass. And then over time, as you're practicing and you reinsert that in the texture again, the idea is that you're more actively hearing the bass line as you're playing it, rather than experiencing it as just a series of finger movements. So that's a very important thing to consider, and a great way with any kind of counterpoint to practice, to extract a line and then insert the line back in and see if you can hear it more actively while you're playing. So this is a good counterpoint piece for intermediate players, but it's still quite difficult. I'm going to recommend some different kind of fingerings, not the traditional fingerings that you normally see in this piece. I really think they help open up the left hand. They really make the piece a lot easier. And I'm referring specifically to bars and also damping basses and by using closed fingerings or fingerings on, rather than say play an open A, which you will have to damp immediately later because it's in a bass line. Playing that A or using a fingering that plays the bass A on the sixth string, thereby allowing you to not have to damp it with your right hand. You can simply lift your left hand fingering. This makes the piece a lot easier and it allows you to inject the music with a lot more flow. So examples of that. Examples of taking out some of these bars. The very first three notes. This really is, it's not super difficult, but really I like to play this really just with my fingers without any bar at all. So 3-0 rather than 2-0. 3 on the bass, 0 on open string on top. And then instead of using the bar, just playing 1 and 2. And then closing that rhythmic grouping with open E string, open sixth string, and 4 on the first string. So another example of that is in measure 16. Measure 16, instead of playing this line here in the bass on the fifth string, I have an opportunity just before there to shift and play it on the sixth string, or in sixth position. As I am in sixth position right here on the sixth fret. And then, rather than use a bar for this, which is the traditional fingering, I can go right into just placing my fingers 2, 3, and 4, and then shifting into 1 and 3 on the fifth and second string. This really helps me to free up my hand, and it just allows me to play the piece with more rhythmic direction and flow, and give it more of a dance-like feel. An example of using a closed fingering rather than open string for basses is right in measure 9 and let's see, measure 10. Measure 9 and 10, there's two instances, actually it's in measure 10. The traditional fingering that's prescribed there calls for an open A, open fifth string. But the problem with that then is you have to, if you play that, you have an open D as your next bass note. And of course, in order to play good counterpoint, you have to damp strings that are ringing over each other in the same line. So rather than have to do double duty with my right hand thumb, I simply shift from the second beat of measure 10 into a closed bass on the sixth string for the A on the third beat of measure 10. Then when I go to play the ensuing D on the open fourth string, I simply lift my second finger off of the sixth string. The line is connected. The basses then, those notes now which are part of the same line are not ringing over each other. So there are other instances which you'll see in the performance lesson on the Bourrée from the first lute suite by Bach. So good luck, and send in your video with any questions you might have. Thank you.